All right, it is Friday evening, September 6th. We have a short week this week with Labor Day, and we actually did have a good amount of red folder news. Have a decent amount for next week as well, so let's get into what happened this week. Starting with the monthly candle, this monthly candle is still just had 1 week so far, and it's pretty much gone one direction. We'll drill down in a second. Currently below, not last month, but the prior month's low. So definitely would like to see, would not be surprised if we balance in this range, or very well could seek out this price here, which is the old all-time highs. But that's such a high time frame candle, we're not going to focus too much on that. It's more of a bird's eye view. On the weekly, last week's candle that closed ended up being a topping signal for a push down. Not really a bottom in sight on ES's weekly chart. On the daily chart, we were intraday, we were holding this initially, this 50% mark of the swing high to low. And I'll let you guys see the percents. We have 61.8 and 38.2. So this is the golden zone. So I've said this in the past few weeks that I've been watching this area to hold. I think 2 weeks ago NQs was holding, but it's, as you'll see in a little bit, it no longer is holding. But so this is an area on watch to put in a higher low potentially. But we definitely, it could just end up, this could be a new range. Always have to be prepared for that. And I want to see how many points this range would be. 601, 2,400 ticks, 10%. And just this swing is over 20 days. So we've been in balance for, technically in balance, a higher time frame balance for 52 days. Now the ATR, I believe it's 18-day. You can see it's starting to trend up, which is a lagging indicator. So that's not just because today we almost nearly doubled the ATR. At the peak, we were at 116s on ES. I think last week we were hanging around, 2 weeks ago we were hanging around 100 and bottomed out around 65. The sweet spot for me is between 50 and 70 and 75. Not that I don't like days that are higher, but that's what I like for my sweet spot. So very nice volume today. For the 4 hour, if you've been watching the previous weeks, we've spent a long time, created this box, hung out in the box, did a top tick, big massive bottom tick with the doji overnight. I'll pretty much hit the top to the tick. Then we did one last top tick here and puked what looks like to be the entire overnight session, entire RTH session. Little pop and continue. And you can see this overnight gap here, which is also fair value gap. We held the mid of it for technically, we held the gap for technically 2 RTHs, actually technically 3, I'm sorry. And I honestly thought this was going to hold for a while, not so much on this time frame, but on the 1 hour and the 30-minute, it looked, at least right here, it looked pretty convincing that this was going to hold, especially when we were pushing up here and this candle was green. But that did not last as long as we hoped, obviously. And this this fake out, liquidity grab, whatever you call it, fake out, liquidity grab, bottom tick, this level, the low of it, you can see was support, flipped into resistance. They top ticked that, lower high, puke. So can delete this zone since we filled that gap. Now we're attempting to fill this gap, as I said on the daily and the weekly. On the weekly, I don't see a bottom really. The daily, I don't necessarily see a bottom. I know I mentioned this zone to look for a lower high, but this zone, I don't really have it on priority anymore because we already traversed through it. I still have it up just to watch it, but in reality, this would be more of the zone I'd be watching on this time frame. So you could even say this, or be generous and do it to this candle, but there. Alright, I like it like that. It's a little bit more recent data we're going off of. And also this fair value gap here, I want to mention that we failed it. Draw a box over it just from here to here, and many times touched the top of the range. Failed. Let's see. So I explained this gap on the 4-hour overnight gap. We finally cleared, and now we are attempting to put in a bottom. And what's just below this gap? The old range we were in, aka box. So lost this box, now seeking the lower box. Zoom out a little for you guys to see it. Big reject off pot, couldn't put a 4-hour body above the point of control, this white line right here. And yeah, so I would look to either bounce off this box and zone, or enter it, and then whether we hang out in it before going higher or going lower, that's going a little too far into the future. But so right now, just watching for a bottom because the market's still in free fall. Got to catch a bid. So this is that overnight sweep I was talking about right here. Below of it, you can see reaction on the 1 hour, which was also the overnight gap to about here that was holding, and you can kind of see how I thought it was going to hold. And then just tweezer top, lower high. 30-minute view. And the weekly profiles this week, believe, so this is the holiday, Monday, overnight after. So Monday night, dumped, opened up Tuesday, big puke, range, and then big puke again. So 2 weeks of range, beginning of this week, dump, back to the lows from 3 weeks ago to reclaim this move. Reclaiming that move up right there. The low is right here. Area to watch. Color it. Closed below this volume node in this curve. Technically haven't entered this curve yet, but we'll see. These are monthly, so this is this month so far, just a straight downtrend. Inside last month. Would like to see us stay above the previous month's high volume node. So something kind of like for a bull case. Oops. And then we don't need to look at the market profile. So there's that. We will pull up NQ. Bear with me. So NQ weekly, this was key area, previous demand, lost it. Buyers turn into set break-even sellers when price returns, and forming a weekly H pattern, a nasty one. And I did the same thing last week. Hang on, sorry, it's loading thousands of days of data. I have way too many charts. All right. I love Sierra charts. I swear it's the only program on Windows I've ever seen do the not responding window and actually come back when you click wait for it. Every program I've ever used, that window pops up. You can wait for your entire life. It's crashing. So yeah, shout out Sierra chart. But so the weekly, as I said, this zone, key zone failed. H pattern. Massive buying wick on NQ. I don't want to make this zone too big. I guess you could put it up to here, but we have the 50 weekly moving average, 200 near the point of control, which this point of control is from a long time, since 2019. I don't know why I thought it was way less. It's a weekly chart, duh. So the daily, this is where I was talking about. Where was it? Right here, we did a bounce. This looked nice at the time. Right here. Created a swing. That's what this zone is. Went up. And this could have been the lower high to all-time highs. But as you can see, dumped from this supply that was created. And what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4 red days in a row, which is every RTH day this week that wasn't a holiday. Blue line's the ATR. Today we doubled it almost, just like ES. So major zone failed right here from right there. Four-hour. Have a little bit different of a box than ES. This gap was filled. Prior demand turned into what? Supply were sellers. Buyers turn into sellers right here. And you could even say that this box here, oops, turned into this box, which then got rejected here. So, and yes, I did notice that I forgot to go over the levels I'm watching next week on ES, so I'll go back to that when I'm done with this. But levels I'm watching on NQ, here's the monthly one. So far, three red months in a row. Took out the low of what would that be, July, as well as June. So I'd like to see that hold. This is the massive line in the sand, just like on ES, the previous all-time highs. So for below on NQ, 18,220 must hold. Above it, we have 18,700, 19,600, 20,000, and then all-time highs on the monthly for NQ. Weekly, down low, I'd watch 18,100, 17,750, with the bottom of it being 17,360. Daily would be this zone. I don't like drawing big zones, but it's just how the chart's lining up. 18,000 top of the zone, 17,400 to the bottom, with 19,000, 19,160, 19,685, and 20,040 above. And those same levels will stand. So those are the NQ levels I'm watching next week. Let me go over the ES really quick, sorry. So levels I'm watching on ES, we have, just going from the weekly above, we have 5,670, 5,560, and that's it above on from the weekly. Below we have 5,362 is top of the zone, 5,270 is the bottom, and then the absolute bottom line in the sand zone is 5122 to 5100. On the daily, above we have 5419, 5500 we'll call it, and the top of that 5565. Must clear this fair value gap after at 5680, pardon me, and then all-time highs at 5720 to break. So probably gonna reiterate that again, just below 5366, 5370, 5400 below. If not, we will most likely enter this box, high probability, from 5363 to 5120 and range through it before we choose a new direction and just backfill this move, basically reclaim it like we reclaim this one. Let me get up the data for next week. So this is not low impact data. Monday next week we just have medium, as well as Tuesday. Wednesday we have high impact. Going by time, we have core CPI, 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 month over month, year over year. Crude oil inventories, of course, being Wednesday, and then 10-year auction as well. Thursday is another red folder day. Got initial jobless claims, PPI, as well as 30-year bond auction. And Friday we have no red folder, so I will let you guys read the yellow folders. Leave this up for a second. And we'll just go over some tickers real quick. So Apple I was watching. I was watching for it to hold this potential box. Did a little fake breakout, failed to fill this gap, which here I'll mark it because that's kind of area of interest. Failed the gap, could not stay in the box, and then jumped back up into it and rejected, so that's not looking the best. I'll mark this gap here. Bottom tick this gap, so this must hold. We will see. PLTR, another one I was watching. This one did a lot better for the individual stocks I've been watching. If you don't know, I only day trade, day trade futures. I'll really only swing these, but slash invest. But talking retirement investing, not 3-year investing. I'm talking long time investing. But yeah, I was looking to for this zone to hold on PLTR as long as the market, the indices didn't show a lot of weakness for a long, which I still would if it, can break above this, accept, and then put in a higher low and continue. So something along these lines where we finally accept above, put a higher low in, whether it's here, it doesn't matter. I just want to see it go above, attempt, and then do it again. So one good thing is that with the market bleeding, here's the weekly candle. The market doing that this week, PLTR being tech was not affected very much. So that gives me a lot of faith in this. So if the market Monday, Tuesday were to be very strong, that would be even more bullish for this. So can almost see a W pattern forming as well. So check out the SPY chart. Filling the gap. Another gap below. Good bottom area would be here for this gap. And then obviously we have supply here. So watch that. For QQQs, failed this level from the box. Created supply here. Could watch here for a bottom tick, but there's no room for play, so it's now or never Qs. So this gap was filled. Bitcoin, go up to the weekly. Daily fair value gap, the mid's still holding, but she's hanging in there. This weekly candle still has 2 more days, so. And then we have this weekly fair value gap below that had the mid tested as well. So go down to the daily. This daily fair value gap must hold for bear case. If not, most likely we'll visit this weekly zone again, which the mid's about 50,000, you can call it. Gold, still in this box technically. Let's check the weekly. Pretty neutral on it. I don't see anything that looks like a top necessarily. I just would like to see us hold this pivot here. Only wicks below, no bodies below this line. Silver weekly. Could be a nice V as long as this stays a lower high. We don't fill this weekly gap. Oops, sorry, let me get my... label that so I know. On the daily, kind of have a nice... Okay, you could draw this 2 different ways. You could go by that weekly gap or this daily gap here. Let's see what it looks like with the daily gap. Daily gap's holding to the tick, so this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do daily gap, and then this little demand zone from here that was created. That's just how I'd mark it up. It's all personal preference, really. Then we have this massive gap here, which also is supply, really. The dollar, I like that wick a lot. Need to see confirmation candles after though, because this could just be a spinning top basing sideways candle to go lower. Check the weekly. Like the wick, but still not convinced of a bottom by this chart just yet. Watch this zone to the downside. To the upside we have this zone. NVDA. Here's the weekly, now ranging, and then go to the daily. Grabbed liquidity, ran higher, put in a lower high, so lower high, lower high. Cannot put in a low lower than this, which is 89. Major line in the sand here. So yep, 97.40 here, major line in the sand, bottom of this gap as well. Which, speaking of which, I don't know why the gap is a zone color. Mark this gap here. Alright, so very obvious levels here that I'm marking out. I'm going to combine this zone with this gap. Actually, so we got demand zone and then gap. So this zone is what I really would want to hold, because that would be creating new lows if not, which that would turn potentially all these buyers, not all, but it would turn good amount of these anyone that bought up here into a seller if we spend time below the box. So SMCI very weak, gonna compare it to NVDA. To use a weekly to do that. NVIDIA is kind of ranging while SMCI is trending down for sure. CELH, Celsius, just massive downtrend since May. Obviously though, it had very well run. Just look at that. Go to the daily on it, and just massive earnings run. But pretty sure the earnings have still been, yeah, see, the earnings have still been good every time. I know this seems like odd stock to add to this basket of everything I'm going over, but I'm just going over tickers I watch and or play. So yep, AMD, you can see these previous zones. This kind of, I don't like how that started, but it lined up perfectly with that. Top ticked it. Got a major gap here. So we had a equal high fail, created a gap. Not a lower high or equal high, but top ticked it. Nasty doji right there in a daily. And puke lower. Filled this gap. And this looks like a nice bottom. I love this engulfing candle. Huge gap down, engulfed up on AMD. Really, I would just like to see this zone hold. So big watch. And then obviously there's a lot of levels to break on the upside here, because a lot of poor structure was created, but it can be taken back and reclaimed back just as fast as it was taken down. So Tesla, massive trend line, fake out, and then a retest here this week. Scroll out, there's the fake out base on it, massive gap down, and then this week we actually failed off of the mid of the gap. I'm still pretty bullish on it long term though, just at least going off of the monthly chart here. Can see went up. And this is here, sorry, I did that too detailed. Really just, if you just look at it like this, higher low, higher low. Sorry, I went too far. Higher low here, higher low here. Yeah, we failed to make a higher high here, but as long as we still keep a higher low, or not even necessarily, as long as we just still do not break this low, and if we do spend time below it, to where if we just bottom tick, AK look below and fail, team bulls all the way. But I'm showing this monthly chart because this is clearly, these are monthly candles. Big rip, base, big rip. So whether you have shorts covering or people piling in, it doesn't matter. It's both buying. So big rip, base, big rip, base. Take that zone, draw it over here. What do we have? Bottom tick. Someone came in and bought this, and this is Tesla with the huge float market cap, and someone stepped in to stop it from falling. So we don't know if it was Papa Elon, we don't know what, but someone thought Tesla was cheap at $100. So I like this view a lot. I mean, really, Tesla hasn't been below that price in 4 years, so you could definitely view it as a discount buy, no matter whether you say Tesla's extended or not, the value, blah blah blah. I mean, it's Tesla. It's always been overvalued if you look at it that way. But all right, sorry, I know this might be the longest one yet, but I'm just going through a lot. Microsoft kind of got its own, let me turn this off, its own little box here. Broke out of it for a sec, back in it, and it's on these old highs right here. Google had a nice uptrend. This demand here failed, turned into supply, gap down, failed off that supply for a lower high. Now I would not be surprised for us to see this level here, right here. I don't know why it's that color. And then final line in the sand being this, from this zone, midpoint was touched here for higher low. Amazon, fake out on the trend line, but then lower high in supply almost. Let's see what the daily looks like. Yeah, so failed to fill this gap. Lower high. Kind of have our own box now. We did fill this upward gap though. Game. Let me go to the monthly. Wild looking monthly. Like that a lot. This candle. Don't like this month so far though, but it's still very early on this month. Weekly. Love that on the volume imbalance. Some people call it, you could call it a gap, whatever you want to call it. I love this bounce here. Draw the midline on that right there. Wicked below it. So obviously, I'm gonna redraw this. Have supply here. Go down to the daily, get a better view. So supply created, failed. Buyer stepped in, selling stopped, and higher low, higher high, higher low for now at least. Going for the higher high, but ran out of time this week. Check Babo. Sloppy uptrend with liquidity grab. Very choppy looking, but higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. Must break this high or this little supply zone here. We top tick. Oil has not been, crude's been getting pretty beat up. Past 4 weeks have been red. Go to the monthly to try and see if there's still that zone I've been watching for a long time. Not really. So yeah, previous high, swing high, and then you got the low, very similar. This low is bottom ticked here on the weekly, higher low, but we have a lower high here. Could almost draw a trend line off that. And then daily, just big meltdown, 67. And then I'm going to compare RSP, which is the equal weighted SPY to SPY. Equal weighted SPY. Both look pretty close. Let me go to the weekly. Yeah, so we got equal weight weekly, SPY. So they both look pretty close. If anything, the equal weight's showing more price action, so that's good. I just use it to tell if tech's carrying the market or not, in SPY at least. So, but all right, this video is probably much longer than. Oh yeah, definitely gonna be much longer than most. But that's why there's timestamps. So hope everyone has a great weekend. Studies up and take care. Thanks.